Our first speaker of the evening. Ed Casas is a graduate of FAU with a BA degree in Anthropology and Social Sciences and Ethnic Studies. Casas runs the Education Department at the Grays Museum of Archaeology and Natural History. With a talk called Xenoanthropology 101, the Nazca Mummies, please welcome Ed Casas!
Come on, one more round of applause, please. You're the star. Awesome.
Here you go, my friend.
Thank you.
All right.
Wow, we're here. Who did their background check and found out what xenoanthropology means? That is quite the term. I'm acknowledging myself as a xenoanthropologist. So that's the study of non-human cultures. What? Maybe we're at the wrong nerd talk, huh? Let's see here. I can look right here, huh? So we're talking about some bodies that came from South America, and they're called the Nazca mummies because they're near the Nazca lines. And that one little figure there, awfully cute looking with a wide head, looks like some bumpy orbital sockets above. He's about 100 feet long. And then the trident-like symbol with multiple tridents is about 500 feet long. So we're going to talk about and that's it. The show's over. Thanks for coming, everybody. Ricardo's getting a drink. Look, I'm having to go forward.
Go right, go forward.
It's not doing that. I broke it by hitting the button.
It's okay, I'll fix it.
Cool. So that's okay.
It's okay.
Well, he's fixing that. Oh, sorry. So there is a little bit of a timeline here. I'm sure there's a deeper timeline, but I want to give you just a couple of clues. One, these bodies were initially found in 2015 by Huaquero tomb raiders. Yeah, grave robbers. They were looking for gold, and they stumbled across something else. These specimens, don't worry, the pictures are coming, were initially delivered to an explorer, adventurer by the name of Thierry Jamin. He's looking for lost cities called Patiti, looking for lost cities of gold in South America. 2023, they brought the bodies to the Mexican Congress, and the forensic naval officer of the Mexican Navy testified to his Congress about these bodies. It was 2023 when I saw them that I recognized them from a 2002 anthropology class in FAU. Just some of the professionals that are involved. If you do your research online, there's going to be a lot of people saying fake. I'm here because I think at a time of AI and CGI that I need to be doing a grassroots presentation and getting people's faces so we know the authenticity of these things. So a cadre of people. Yes, there are some women involved also. I'm sorry I had to cut down the slides. This is actually half my slideshow. It's just going to be on the biological morphology. The cultural stuff I had to delete. So that'll be part 2. This is giving you some of the dating. Some of it could be anomalous. You know, radiocarbon dating can be inaccurate at times. So they have done several radiocarbon datings. And interestingly enough, the first lab, Beta Analytics, it's right here in Miami.
My buddy works there.
His buddy, I need to talk to you. Okay, but most of the reads are coming back about 240 AD or in the 1200s, depending on the specimen. There's multiple specimens and multiple carbon dating samples have been taken from the bodies. These bodies are desiccated and dried, possibly naturally because of the Peruvian Nazca area environment. It's exceptionally dry, and possibly also because of a covering of diatomaceous earth. You might be familiar with diatomaceous earth. It's used for, your pool filter, for insects and whatnot. It may have kept pests off of the bodies. You guys ready to see these things? Yeah. Did I build it up enough? Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, Maria. Maria is a tridactyl specimen. Her DNA has come up about 30% human, with plenty of hits into the unknown. Now you could say, well, it's 3 fingers, it could be some sort of mutation, but it's more than 3 fingers. These beings have an extra phalange, so their fingers have an extra knuckle. Also, Maria appears to be missing her coccyx, or tailbone. We still have our tailbones. Isn't that weird? It's almost like amphibians are more advanced than we are. This is a possible tree from the biologist Wrangel. He is suggesting that Maria has multiple chimpanzee species in her DNA, as well as Han Dynasty DNA from China and Myanmar Dynasty, which is interesting because before her DNA came out, I suggested that these beings were related to mythology that refers to the Naga and dragon people. I don't know if you realize this, but there's people in Southeast Asia who claim descendancy from dragons. So it is not this Western myth of a monster to them. Also, by the way, these images are many of the images I personally cut and pasted. Since they do consider me a researcher, the main medical people that are working on this, I do have direct access to the CT scans and the x-rays. So some of these images have never been seen before. So here's Montserrat. She's also famous for having one of the many implants. She has a gold implant on her disc, on her head, a gold disc on her head, which is interesting. There's actually a myth about the god Set, who became pregnant after Horus flung semen into him. Yeah, that's how it works, right? And after Set became pregnant, a gold disc appeared upon Set's head. So it's kind of interesting. These beings may represent more than just random specimens. Well, let's see what happens here. I can't tell if this is moving or not. What do you think, Ricardo? Doesn't look like it's moving. That's okay. So this, I actually clipped this. It's a 3D picture of Montserrat. So normally when I'll show it online or something, we'll do like a 360 around her body. Yeah, I don't know if this, I don't know if the video link is working here. That's okay. But what's interesting about Montserrat is, if you see she's clutching her stomach, Montserrat is pregnant, or was, and has a tridactyl fetus within her. But my favorites are actually not what they're called the Maria types or the M types. It's the J types or Josephina types are my favorite because they're a little less human. So here we have Alberto, Josephina, and Luisa. They are 2 feet tall, and they are with eggs and metal implants. So we could say this is some sort of graphical. We're in this day of AI, which is why I'm here. I'm here trying to get ahead of the AI before people don't believe this. So it is enhanced, of course, because it's a CT scan. And the important thing is there's multiple of these beings. So you can see the detail of these beings. They have occipital bumps to the back of their head. They have supraorbital arches above their eyes. And here's some x-rays, and of course the bodies with the diatomaceous earth. One specimen is headless. There's some question about the DNA on these. Maria, it could be Mario, which makes sense to me because they have a morphology not too different than amphibians. And if you know amphibians, they go through sequential hermaphroditism at times. So a frog can switch sexes depending on the environment. Maria has 64% unknown DNA. And then perhaps the strangest of them all, there is one last xenotype, one last xenomorph, erroneously called an insectoid. These are interesting because they have spinal eminences, these projections coming off their back. Those are pneumatic, just like the spaces in some of their skulls, so it might aid in buoyancy. And here is just a wide variety of the specimens, still with the diatomaceous earth on, varying degrees of morphology. And here's a screenshot right from my house. So I made this graphic. These are CT scans and x-rays of the variety of beings. So please follow me when you get a chance if you want more details on some of this. Joyce here, or Joyce, I think it's Joyce actually, it's named after a Peruvian journalist, is actually the only one that's definitively male on the exterior. Joyce is the only one that's demonstrating maleness. Okay, so this cool graphic here, I actually gleaned that picture myself. That head, that red head that you see is from an egg of a specimen known as Artemis. So I actually captured that myself. I also captured some shots of some other fetuses, or larvae, as we might call them. On the right there, it just mentions the various bone structures they have. So they have something like a furcula that you might find in a bird. They have a fused clavicle. They only have a singular lower arm bone and a singular lower leg bone that's fused. They have one palm bone, a sort of unicarpal. And yeah, let's move on. And again, more of the morphology goes beyond just strange bones. We're talking about these beings don't have lungs, so that means that's the clue, that's the big clue that they're proto-amphibians. So we do have amphibious creatures on planet Earth. You know, people want to call these lizard men or reptilians. Really, they're closer to salamanders. No lungs. There appears to be limited separation between their skull and their body, which is called cranio-coelomic congruence. And again, as weird as that sounds, can be found in some neotenic traits. So neotenic means youthful traits of certain amphibians, and invertebrates like cephalopods. Anything else interesting on there? Here's some close-ups of the skin. You can see that their fingerprints are not concentric circles like ours. They're more of parallel lines. And you can see there's other interesting things about the skin as well. They have scutes. They have a cross-hatching rhombus sort of pattern on their skin, which might even be replicated in ceramics throughout the world. And here's a close-up of that furcula, that interclavicle, much like a bird or a turkey would have. And here's a close-up of Victoria showing her gastralia. These are abdominal ribs. They're found in crocodilians today. It might be to support this sort of circumference, this sort of circular rib cage they have. Again, they don't have lungs, so this might be help to support a cutaneous form of breathing. And there's a raptor gastralia next to it, just to give you an idea. So many of the researchers pointed out that the lower sacrum, the lower vertebrae of Maria, and some of the smaller ones were fused. Well, based on some sort of amphibian-like morphology, I named this, it's their urostyle. It's what has remained for, like, when a frog goes through its metamorphosis, it loses its tail, and what remains is this urostyle. No coccyx, no tailbone, like we have. I suggested that perhaps with the arm length being longer than the legs and that singular hand bone, that perhaps these beings can switch to a quadrupedal stage if necessary. The beings do have metal implants, some in their palms, some in their chest, some in their head. And this just goes over some of the metal components. You know, I'm more interested to see if there's either copper from the Great Lakes or iron from Europe. That's what I'm kind of interested in. But a lot of people are pointing out there appears to be trace elements of osmium, which requires a large industrial scale production to make osmium. And we've got some interior of the eggs here. We may have some larvae there. But definitely we have larvae here. The one on the left I personally found in the first egg of Artemis. It appears to be hatching. And you can see a scan there that sort of implies front limb metamorphosis, much like, again, like certain species of salamanders. Their heart is even interesting. It's a tubular heart. So, believe it or not, us as human beings, we actually have a tubular heart when we're young. So it's one of those neotenic juvenile traits. But it's more popular in invertebrates and some amphibians. Another personal discovery of mine, I predicted that in the skull of the beings, there is this concave structure. So this is an approximate size of one of the smaller types. And they have this concave structure here. I gave it the name Kappa. No one else was naming it, so I've been filling voids. If you guys know the Kappa of Japanese myth, It's these little yokai creatures that hold water in their head. Look it up. So I named it the kappa because it seems to be the same thing. I predicted a pineal gland there, and then when they released a sagittal cut of the scans, I saw it. So that was cool. You know, I like to say that the archaeology is predicting the biology. This really isn't even my wheelhouse. I'm the cultural guy. But my whole cultural slide I had to delete. It wasn't enough. And you're not going to believe my cultural stuff. You're going to think it's freaking Star Wars or Lord of the Rings if you don't see this stuff first. So you have to believe in the biology. And here's just a little diagram of what I'm saying about that chamber. That larva, and keep in mind that these beings probably still have some primate DNA in them. There might be some issue with the ovoviviparity or gastric brooding. So some amphibians give birth in their stomach, and they might carry them around in their mouths. So lastly, this little slide here, what it's saying is if you have beings who have a furcula like a bird, a gastralia like a crocodilian, cutaneous breathing like amphibians, and even some condyles, these little bones that hang in the back of your head, like a mammal, what are these things? If you're looking at tubular hearts, and the tubular hearts could imply hydrostatic limbs. That means like an insect or a cephalopod, they may be inflating their limbs with fluid so that they can move. And these are depicted in the archaeological record. Also, these beings are said to be able to extend their head and neck. Like what character? Like E.T. But Spielberg worked directly with Hynek, who is part of the Blue Book program. So what this is implying to me is that Close Encounters and E.T. had inside information. Also, Victoria's DNA with having 64% unknown, with these two factors of these strange sort of invertebrate traits, and 64% unknown, this pushes this morphology back 500 million years for it all to be together in one specimen. I call this theory the constant companion theory because it is my belief that in the cultural record, bear in mind I recognize these from petroglyphs in Bella Coola, Canada, and in the Caribbean, which led me to the Hei-Tiki of the Maori people, which led me to the Dogu ceramics of Japan. These beings appear to be depicted globally. Heart-shaped faces and tridactyl limb beings appears to be a universal symbol. If you want more information, you can find me at tridactyls.com or at Tridactyls. Also, the-alien-project.com is the original investigators. So you can go to that site right now and interact with CT scans. And lastly, tridactyls.org are my friends, and they're the ones posting the CT scans and the x-rays. Thank you so much. That was Xenoanthropology 101. You're going to have to find the cultural one, because that's when it starts. You thought that was weird? The cultural part gets weirder. Wow, how fun. So I guess we can take questions. Is that right, Ricardo? Yes, sir.
Is the idea that these are from other planets, or are they something that was always...
Well, of course, they called their website thealienproject.com.
Ed, what was the question?
Oh, good thing, thank you. He's asking, do I think they're from other planets, right? Yeah. So, of course, they named the website thealienproject.com. They call them reptilians. They call the little ones insectoids. He's kind of done a disservice by doing that, because I don't think they're aliens. I think they have 500 million year old morphology from here. I don't think they're reptilians. I think they're more along the lines of a proto-amphibian. So no, I think they're here. They're from here. Another question?
How tall were they?
So Maria is a human-sized specimen. The weird-looking kind of ET ones, the little look like gray aliens, are about 2 feet, and then the strange little ones with the spinal eminences are 1 foot in length. Yeah.
What do we think happened?
What do we think happened to the species? Well, there's depictions of them right up into the, if you guys look at the Heitiki of the Maori, there are realistic depictions of them. The Dogu of Japan, pretty realistic looking. So there's eyewitness to these things. So what happened to them? Are they still here? Or did they segue and evolve into another form? And of course, I feel a little guilty for discounting all those abductees. They say they were abducted. I feel bad for kind of not believing them because they've described things that look like this. And I think the gentleman over here had a question. Yeah.
When did this created? When was this discovered?
So the grave robbers got a hold of the bodies in 2015. They have been sending them across the world. So there are Russian oligarchs who are paying $1 million for one of these things. 2016, it came to the Explorer, and he's the one that came up with the Alien Project and the reptilians and all that. I don't even know if this is really his wheelhouse, and he just kind of got stuck with it. For me, the personal thing is recognizing them from petroglyphs and then following the clues for the last 2 years. This has been my job for the last 2 years. I wake up and do research this, make papers, make info memes, I call them. Those are all info memes. Yeah.
So, follow-up, Spielberg made E.T. a long time before that.
Yeah, so the Project Blue Book and that Professor Hynek, clearly they have, they may have bodies, clearly have inside information because E.T. with his heart-shaped head, his elongated head, the way his neck moves. And you guys remember Close Encounters? Do you remember, a lot of us when we were younger, we first saw that, we're like, oh, those things look weird. Those things look real. Here they are. And I'm here to tell you, I'm just a regular guy. By the way, the Graves Museum is no longer open. But if you drive up US 1, you can still see the dinosaur in the building, which is cool. Graves Museum, yeah.
I'm curious to know if you can give us the counter-argument.
Yeah, so the counter-argument, unfortunately, is weak. The counter-argument is fake. The counter-argument is they are manipulated human beings to create the three fingers of the beings. Now, to be fair, there is one specimen that is I don't even usually share that specimen on the screen. There is one specimen that is a human child that looks like was manipulated to emulate these beings. But what I like about having that is it shows the difference between the ones that aren't manipulated. So it's a good thing we have that. Even though it's a sad story and we don't want to promote that as some sort of alien, it's good because we can show that, okay, so here's a human with their digits cut off, and here's something where the digits aren't cut off. What I call it, you've heard of Occam's razor? I call people using Occam's spork. So, Occam's spork is they go for the simplest answer despite all the evidence and facts that say otherwise. So we can say, I can see you go, yeah, it's probably just somebody, like my first guess, right? Your first guess is somebody cut off the two other fingers. But then it doesn't explain the missing coccyx. It doesn't explain the lack of lungs. It doesn't explain a tubular heart, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot. If you try to break down one aspect of it, there's like 99 other things you have to go through. And then even if you prove one specimen to be like, this one here is manipulated, well, there's over 20. Rumor has it that there's up to 100 or 1,000 of these. They found something called a citadel. So Peru has these underground stone areas. Weird stuff, right? I'm here to give you ontological shock, they call it. Hopefully I did that. All right, thank you so much for listening. That was awesome. Appreciate the questions. And Ricardo, I want to give this to you.
Is that a
This replica Josephina head.
I thought it was a burrito. Sorry, I didn't look at it. Thank you, Ed.
Let's give it a go for Ed Costas, please. A little Zeno Anthropology 101.
Oh, well, I see. The mic, I must have double buttoned it. Hey, hey, hey. How many people are watching out there still? If you are, give me a holler. Wonder if I can jump to, hello, hello. I don't know if you can see this. I hope you can. What's happening? I should probably just test myself and just see if I'm on the TV, Ma. Looks like I'm on the TV, Ma. Wow, I've come so far. Cool. So I want to go through and sort of on the TV, Ma. Sort of pick up where we left off on that wonderful groovy live show. I thought I was going to be able to post audience comments. I'm not sure how to do that at this second. Hold on, we're connecting to your channels. Oh, what does that mean? So let's go ahead and look at that last slide, everyone. If you have any questions, please send them over. I do see the chats wherever you are, I hope. Right now, I'm seeing Fat Jesus coming in on YouTube. Fat Jesus came in on, looks like Kick. Fat Jesus on Facebook. Thanks, Fat Jesus. Gears fans, I know you guys are out there. Hang on into the show, Fat Jesus, Gear fans. Who else is out there today? Give me a shout out. All right, let's look at this, what I'm trying to say here. If you caught that at the end, I got... Okay, yeah, I only got access to the group. I can only share the comment. I can see the comments. I just not sure how to share them with you guys. I can see them though. They're all coming in still from different. What stream is your main stream? What do I consider my main channel? I consider my main channel really. I mean, YouTube of course is YouTube, and X is X. Facebook's growing. But I can at least see the comments, and I'll at least repeat them back. So what I'm saying about these morphological traits, again, is that if these are not juvenile beings, so they are mature beings, but they're retaining juvenile traits that are similar to invertebrate beings, and those hydrostatic limbs, it's one of those... moments where I had an inkling that this was a thing, but it wasn't until Strange Owl was like, hey, did you consider hydrostatic limbs? It was almost like Strange Owl gave me the permission to say, oh, well, yeah, I have, because we've looked at these petroglyphs of these, I call it anomalous limbed beings or serpentine limbed beings. So, strangely enough, on the same day I was doing the research into this, that Victoria's DNA, if you extrapolate what her missing DNA says, again, I'd prefer to work with these beings because of, obviously, the hybrids are confusing, right? This, it seems, it's less human. That's why I think I'm not going to say it. The xenomorphs, not going to say it. The little, with the eminences, the spinal xenomorphs, those guys should definitely, they deserve more testing. And I'm sure it's coming. These guys are doing things behind the scenes, and there's a lot of science being done. Moving on. So again, as I said in the video, I recognize the cordiform heart-shaped faces and tridactyl limbs of the specimens from a 2002 anthropology class from petroglyphs in Bella Coola, Canada, and in the Taino art of the Caribbean. This actually has some Ecuador art in it, but it's so lovely, I had to leave it in there. So what you're seeing, of course, is the obvious tridactyl limbs, but what seems to interest me is the cordiform or heart-shaped faces. What's true, Fat Jesus? You guys got to remember too. I don't know what you're commenting on, so you have to if you hear me say something, you have to repeat it back almost. I think that happened last week, but yeah, really the first two on the left, top and the bottom, on the left and right, left and the left. Those two were two of the ones that I remember. What's also strange is, why do I remember even asking this question? I asked my professor, is there any connection between these two cultures? And he said no. Because traditionally, if there's too much geographical distance and too much temporal distance, they tend to discount it. And so the Canadian ones, predate the taino ones by probably a couple thousand years. I mean, give or take, because there's, the indigenous people, I think they say 6,000 years. Okay, yeah, more likely. So, but then the Caribbean, those may not have been there until 1250 BC or maybe 500 BC, somewhere in there. So what else do we have besides tridactyl limbs and the cordiform heart-shaped faces? The heart-shaped face is a fundamental, important part of the constant companion theory. But we have images of mother goddesses. And hopefully I have the one up top here. We'll see that a little bit more. Yeah, you got my mouse there. Cool. But here, this is considered a mother goddess in birth. Do we see any good anomalous limbs? I'd say this one down here, very cute, by the way. That appears to be showing some anomalous limbs. Maybe even these legs up here. But we definitely see tridactyls, and we definitely see some cordiform faces. Let's move on. Whoa, hey. So I was going... Jeez, my mouse is a little touchy. So, I was going to keep track of all these artifacts until I found that there was people who did way better a job than I could. So it looks like, this was probably spawned past 2017 and beyond. I see this mostly on this French site about the little people, the little beings and the ant people, right? So this focuses on the ant people terminology, which is something you hear in North America and especially in the United States. All over the world, right? That's the whole point. Someone else already went along and tracked a bunch of these things. Look, I see my Heitiki there on the right. Of course, the Wangina, but in my opinion, the Wangina is actually a distraction, and there's more of a realistic steganographic. Yeah, you can see some of the ones from Ecuador we just saw. So again, this is, I believe, the same people. Yeah, it's in the French. So this is the same people who did the, oh God, look at that on the right there. Whew. See, sometimes even, some even give me a little ontological shock now and then, because if you can't see that face on the right, and you got to remember too, it's not just about seeing a face, It's about countenance, It's a general look and a feel. But keep in mind, I was taught in a philosophy class many, many years ago, before I graduated even from FAU, and I was taught that pareidolia was Mother Nature's way of thwarting the human being's instinct to kill little things with big round eyes. True story. He wasn't just the philosopher, and I think some of my listeners might know, this philosopher professor, he also was the director of the museum before I started working at the Graves Museum of Archaeology and Natural History. So what do you know? So great stuff here. Thank you, the creators of the Little People and Ant People site. You guys have done such a great job. So give a shout out to our French friends out there. There's a nice couple that are working closely with Theory that's making sure that we're getting our nice pictures. Let's keep those watermarks off of there, guys, for the sake of global science. Great stuff, though, huh? Spirals, too, of course. Spirals, crosses, cross-hatching, rhombus patterns, zigzag patterns representing perhaps water, salt water. The spirals representing water. Yeah, good stuff. So this is just segueing in for those that know about the fleshy guys. If you watch the slideshow about the fleshy guys, this is a lot easier to digest. So some great stuff here. Aren't these wonderful? They're wonderful, playful art. Do they look threatening? Does the art look like it was created out of fear? Is this what Space Force is acquiring funding for? Is this what Lou El Cusano is beating the war drums for? Well, you know what I think about that cordiform heart-shaped face. That spawned our beliefs and other things. So again, those petroglyphs were found in association. This was part of the beginnings of my own research, was the heart-shaped tridactyl limbs are found with water symbols, serpent symbols, and perhaps most, I want to say damning, that's not the right word, is it? Most blessed images of the mother goddess. So the Heitiki, an ancestral being. Now here we can see that same Caribbean Taino petroglyph, that mother goddess, but now you can see there in between on her chest, you can see why this is considered a mother goddess. Also, I left that splayed, flayed angles coming off her ear. I thought that was something that represented a water creature, like a fin, so I left that on there. But if you look at one of the first instances of steganography I thought I stumbled upon is the Amon Ram statue in Egypt, which appears to have a human pharaoh just below its head and just between its paws. And, you know, some suggest that it's done in showing that the pharaoh is somehow lesser, and I guess, yeah. But if it's a mother goddess, what is it really symbolic of? And there is a similar shape. I mean, it's hard to see. I don't know if it's still there anymore. On the Sphinx, in some pictures, there looks like there may have been perhaps a depiction of a pharaoh there. So what is that symbolic of if a human is being depicted by something else? We could look at it as something threatening and all-encompassing, but what if it is a mother goddess? Or as in the creature on the lower left there, that's from Easter Island. Thanks to that, there's the one gentleman, his name escapes me, on Twitter, who does some great on-the-job training there. That's a creator being. On the right, there is a Syrian eye god from the Syrian eye idol. That's a fertility being. Three of my favorite artifacts. I suggest that greenstone is depicting at least some of their flesh. They may vary. I don't know. There may be red ones, white ones, black ones, yellow ones. That dogu might be depicting a clavicle, or it could be a symbol much like my psi symbol, which is essentially just a larval form with frontal limb development. And that eye idol, if that doesn't look like ET. So again, I suggest that the archaeology is predicting the biology time and time again. I'm not sure if at the very least, I haven't been proven decidedly wrong. We'll have to wait. Some things still remain to be seen. I would like to see a full image of what I suggest will be a front-limbed salamander-like development of a larva or fetus. I suggest the Magatama and the Buddha symbol are actually possibly developing cells within the fetuses. So I'm suggesting this telescoping generational concept, which again suggests that these are some sort of Genesis taxa, some sort of creator species, perhaps made by Earth itself. Perhaps we don't need panspermia from across the galaxies to create life. Perhaps this is just something the Earth does on its own, and these are the beings that produce life. On the right, we have some Naga statues, which people say, of course, are supposed to be snakes. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure about snakes with noses. And are some of them wearing goggles? It looks like they're wearing goggles, doesn't it? I don't know. But so I suggest that, yeah, the Naga, of course, I suggest are them. Yeah, unfortunately, I can't share the comments today. So part of the grander constant companion theory is what I'm calling it. I purposely went for something wordy. The Theotherianthropic grapheme hypothesis. So what I'm suggesting is that the letters of the world conceal evidence of these beings, of their prominence in our culture. And I think no better depiction would be than this Chinese radical for heaven or God, Tian. And think of that sound, Tian, as a suffix for other words. And you might be able to create some interesting coincidental words. I say coincidence because that's what AI wants to tell me. Two other hypotheses include have no graven images, steganographic concealment. I believe there is depictions of realistic, hyper-realistic beings in World Heritage Sites. And lastly, the Naga-morphine hypothesis, that is, the Nagas are the best cultural parallel to these beings. This is what they are. That's what I'm saying they are. I'm not just saying this as hey, this would be a great name for them. Let's call them Naga because they're wacky. I'm calling them Naga because I believe this is what they are, and that very morphine of yeah. Use your imagination there too. What kind of words can you make with Naga? Go ahead. There's a lot. Well, I trace this morphine, and it seems to come down from the Himalayan plateau related to saline lakes, such as currently one of the names for in Hindu, in India, is Lake Rakshasa, which is it's the lake of the ogress. And if you know the Tibetan myths, an ogress mates with a primate, and that's how humanity is born. Personally, I think I like that a little bit better than Adam and Eve. Much more colorful. Let's keep going. All right, so steganography. So here we go. I suspected that these beings were the Yakshasa. You know, someone just posted the other day, they said, so basically these are the goblins, the imps, the elves, the fairies, and we've just been trying to explain them for all these years. Yes. So I had suspected these Yakshasa were the dwarves of Western myth because of the metallurgy. And of course, these beings are found with metal implants and metal hips. And lo and behold, in this one statue, with this guardian statue, it gives the impression that the two smaller guardian statues are somehow subversive to the center statue. And this is a common motif in the Hindu religion. But according to my research, because we have to look at everything completely different now. That's what I'm doing. We're looking at everything in a completely different way. There is new evidence. So you can't keep quoting the same History Channel, the same Ancient Aliens guy. You can't. There's bodies. So I suggest that these little statuettes conceal the beings. Many times the elbows are recreating the very distinct temporal bones of the tridactyl skull. Many times there is heads upon heads upon heads. So if you're lucky, tridactyl recursive art will include 3 heads. Four heads actually. The mother, the father, the son, and man, or the hybrids really, because it looks like they depict them with elongated heads. This, I think, is one of the grandest depictions, and maybe you'll see it, maybe you don't. Maybe you'll suggest that I don't know what I'm seeing. I'm telling you what I'm seeing, and you could accept it, and you could accept it and open your life up to a whole bunch of interesting exploratory questions and searches into museums and looking at myths and legends in a whole new light. Or you could dismiss me and say, I don't know what I'm talking about, and yada, yada, yada. But these here is the Temple of Hathor, and the pillars appear to show 2 faces of the goddess, who I'd already suspected was a predicate to the ionic columns. And then to see this at this particular angle, because this is perspective anamorphosis. Perspective anamorphosis requires certain things to be able to see through the optical illusion. And one of those things is, in this case, there's a couple of things involved. One is your angle and distance. If you don't have the proper angle or proper distance, because as you pull away, the illusion will get easier. So from a distance, whatever that perfect distance is, these may look without any sort of help. And I didn't do any Photoshop in these, of course, besides remove the outer, I left the picture there so you can see for yourself. So this, all you did was Photoshop. Yes. But it appears to create their supraorbital arches. Okay, you say, yeah, I see that, Ed. But it also seems to depict their isosceles maxillary plate. So the maxillary plate on all animals is that upper jaw. I just like to throw in that isosceles, that triangle in there, that word for triangle, so you can look for it in the art and hopefully find as grand of a discovery as this. And that's just more of the same with Bayon Temple, I believe, too. The faces of the humans on the sides are the distractions, and they're also actually the lesser beings. Once again, a human is being birthed from a tridactyl head. I suggest this is the whole of human cosmology. Primates' interpretation of proto-amphibian life cycles and possible difficulties when you have a skull and body chamber with limited separation between the two. At the same time, giving birth within your body. So these sort of cultures are living, they're alive and well. In fact, if you watch Sadhguru, the Indian philanthropist and philosopher, he has his Naga festival every year. And here you can see the Tridactyls' temporal bones are depicted on these tattoos of these two different tribes here. We have the woman with her neck extension, which you might associate more with Africa, but here we have it here. She's doing this in emulation to honor the dragon mother. So a dragon isn't a monster. A dragon is like a wise ruler. In fact, sometimes I just jump into folk etymology, meaning I'll just come up with something. So like dragon, another way you could look this, and good luck with the research, but that DR, very similar to our abbreviation for doctor, coincidentally, seems to imply, or DRIA implies wisdom. And that Gon could be a name, a proper name, and ruler. I don't know. Again, it's folk etymology. I'm just spitballing here. But also these tribes also have what I call the cross-hatching pattern, which I first identified in pottery and suggested only that it was a reptile symbol, not knowing later that if you saw the previous slideshow, that the tridactyl skin actually does have that unique pattern. In fact, if you look at your own skin, you'll probably notice we do have a cross-hatching skin pattern here and there. And it also looks like they have tattooed the interclavicle, or what you could call the furcula. So it's just using some AI to try to come up with what some of these forms may have looked like. So something like a larva form and a xenomorph spinal eminence form. Putting the tridactyls, getting them out of their often depicted look of being on two legs and considering them on all fours. And perhaps a possible hybrid like Maria. So the constant companion theory, non-human beings, the tridactyls, imprinted culture on humanity, influencing symbolic language and our belief systems. And evidence of these humanoid amphibians can be found in the archaeological record and the ancestral narratives
worldwide. We were never alone. Note, in addition to the testimony of forensic scientists, paleontologists, and medical experts, several papers have been published in scientific journals attesting to the authenticity of the beings. These assertions are supported by CT scans, X-rays, and DNA analysis. The Tridactyls of Nazca, Peru represent primate, proto-amphibian hybrid beings that corroborate with post-flood cosmological narratives of ancestral tutelary beings that taught man culture and civilization, and they're best exemplified by the Naga and dragons of Asian belief systems. This has been the constant companion theory and xenoanthropology. I am a former archaeologist and educator. You can follow me at Tridactyls. And a couple of shots there of the museum I used to work with, and me playing paleotech to famous paleontologists. Bobby De Palma, helping him build the dinos. But actually, once they were built, he didn't want me around. I was very klutzy. Okay, and once again, here's our buddies. And good, yeah, I have the, let's see there. Can I highlight that though? Oh, okay. That's cool. Let's just go there real quick. So yeah, so you can see the website, the eminence, and little beings and ant people. So again, someone's done like a lot of research. So I don't know who they are. It'd be fun to get them on the show sometime. But do your due diligence. Understand that this is found all over. All right, I'm going to wrap this up. That's all I wanted to do today. Oh, wait, no, I have to give away a head. All right, I'm just going to roll it here. Hold on, I got to get some extra numbers in there. Fat Jesus and Gears. We got to get you some extra numbers. Let's see here. Since you came on and talked on the show here in the chat. Ooh, let's see. I'm just going to pull up the numbers thing. Thanks everybody for watching. That's the end of the show. You don't have to stick around if you don't want, unless you have a skin in the game to win a Tridactyl head tonight. Let's see here. All right. Okay. The organs were talked about and the ribs are in the first part of the slideshow, buddy. So, Gears, if you're still there, or Fat Jesus, if you're still there. 9. Are you looking for a? You gonna give me throw me a number, Jesus, so I can put you in for a head? Deleting somebody off this list. Well, let's see, 817. Just to let anyone know who's still listening, the YouTube should be releasing that slideshow, the live presentation. Number to win the Tridactyl head. You've got to pick one. You've picked one before, I think, haven't you? Yeah, right now you've got number 4. I guess Gear's gone. Well, it's 1 to 100, but there's a bunch of them that are taken. But just throw one out. I thought you've done this before, bro, or watched the show maybe once. 10. You could pick again, or you could take 9 or 12. Well, I can show you the list, but I mean. Okay, cool. All right. I'm just going to roll on my own. You'll just have to trust me what the number is. I'm a professional dungeon master, so you have to believe me. Okay, here we go. I'm going to roll twice. We got a 71. 71 is empty. XXX. put in that spot. Thank you all for watching. We'll try to again give away another Tridactyl head next week. 71 is now out of the game. It will not be chosen again.